Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, Season 3, Episode 2. Why all of your characters suck.
Yeah, and all characters suck.
All of their characters suck. That's what's written here in the notes, Jeff.
Yeah, but yes, and all characters suck.
But all of their characters, you said to specify that it's them.
I have no idea what
those characters. Whatever. Welcome to the show.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the muck of Java and build. Welcome back. Upset with Michael for being a jerk as always. My name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
Always the victim of Jeff's wrath. I am Michael Miller.
Yeah, so we're here today to talk about why your characters suck.
And why my characters suck.
And why Michael's characters suck.
Mostly why Jeff's characters suck.
Mostly why mine suck. And the thing to remember is, I think this is something we all go through when you're creating characters a lot. If you are a world builder of any kind, if you do not question some of your characters at one point, you question all of your characters. Those are the two options. There's no I question none of my characters ever as sucking.
Yeah. All my characters are the best. I never question them.
Yeah, no one questions them. It's like people like, I have the best dialogue. No, people don't say that. People say I have horrible dialogue.
Usually. Oh God, I wish most people write dialogue better.
But the thing to keep in mind is all characters do suck, and the reason I kind of like doing characters this season, in part because it's out of order of the way I would normally do it, is because to me it sums up all of the failings people have with world building. Because characters are another perfect example where they can't be complete. And the reason all characters suck is if you look at them from the wrong angle, there are glaring missing holes. If you really go into Luke Skywalker's childhood, there is none. He didn't really have one. He started off as like a 18-year-old farm boy. That's where he started his life. He did not exist before then. Sure, there's some things that got pulled out and blah, 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 blah. They made some stuff up to themselves, but when you're starting into Star Wars, Luke's life begins on the screen to the other people participating at the point, I'm saying 18, I don't know exactly what age he was.
I think
he was kind of whiny. He might have been 16. But who knows what age he was exactly, but he was the young farm boy. That was, part of that was one of his archetypes, the naive farm boy. And so Luke Skywalker, especially in the first story, before he's had 10 million words written about him every minute, probably at this point, but officially has giant holes in him. And the simple reason is you can't recreate the life of someone. The same way you can't recreate a world when you world build. You don't really make a world. You make an illusion for when people look at it, they get what you want them to see. And great characters, when they do that right, when you look at the frame the world builder or the author has created, you go, this is that character, and you start pulling out some of the things like, this guy's a curmudgeon. He reminds me of Jeff.
I was just going to say that.
He's a lightweight. He reminds me of Michael. That's the kind of stuff you say about characters.
And when you're talking about my weight class, it's referred to as featherweight, not lightweight.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about your weight.
You were talking about my weight class, my boxing weight class, which would be featherweight, as opposed to yours, which would be ultra super heavyweight.
I am highly knowledgeable in boxing.
Maybe boxing fruit, or chocolate.
Yeah, so the big thing to keep in mind is when you're creating characters, your characters are going to suck technically all the time. There's nothing you can do about it. Make them work in the way people interact with them. That's all you're trying to do. Now, you do need to know more than the people who look at them to make them feel real when people look at them. But you can't recreate a person. You can't recreate a world. And if you're me, you've tried, because you're a bit OCD about this, not about cleaning your house, but about this. So it's okay to not make a complete character or a complete world. Every genetic change, monsters made in its evolutionary process. And so I think that's another great reason why it's great to do characters second. And now, even though this is typically, and I said in the last episode, characters are very detail driven. The important thing about characters are the details. It does not mean that there is not meta information about characters. And it's good to keep that in mind. This big picture sort of stuff about the characters that is the things are the patterns that people will latch onto to get the initial understanding of a character. And then it's the details that will anchor them in the person's mind forever, making any sequel you do suck because it didn't live up to the expectations of what the character would be in the next sequel. That's when you've really struck home with a good character, when you can't ever hit the sweet spot.
When you can only do it one time, that's the sweet spot.
But the reason is it's why you can't do it twice.
What do you mean?
It's like you could write the character exactly the way it should be the second time, but no one will agree with you because it's so memorable. They've all come up with their own interpretation of what the character should be.
Well, yeah, but aren't some people, at least, even like a broken clock, right, twice a day sort of thing, where even some people are going to be happy with it?
Yeah, but in general, you'll never see or hear that. Social media does not work that way. Social media will show you only the negative stuff because that's what trends.
But I feel like you're leading into, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, I don't care because I do a lot of that on this show. I feel like you're leading into the concept where, a character is never perfect because a character should evolve and change. So moving forward, you could be like, okay, in the first episode or the first movie, the first book, the character was like this. But since they've grown and changed, even if you loved that character that way, now he changes and now he's going to be different. It's going to be a new experience in this book.
No, we'll get into that when we talk about the meta detail.
Am I getting ahead of myself? Is that what
you're getting way ahead of yourself because that's not true. And I've always said you don't think that's true? All of your characters. And that's part of the problem, though, right? Is someone like me, I'll look at the character of Guard 3, I'll have latched on because I like something about him. I'll be upset he didn't grow. So in the next movie, when he comes back as Guard 3 again, I'll be annoyed that there was no character growth. But there never should have been. He was never a character designed to be grown. But now, if it's the main character and they don't grow, that's a problem. But we'll talk about a little bit of that because that is important at the level, the basic meta questions of characters, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And this is the high level stuff that gives you the patterns that people will recognize. And then I like to have extended meta. So even
you keep saying meta, but I feel like what you should be saying is macro. No, because most of the time when I hear the word meta, it's usually in reference to a state that is in flux, right? A state that is changing. Like usually here in flux. Yeah. I'm usually hearing or using the term meta when you're talking about a game's meta, and a game's meta is changing. So month to month, the game is going to be different based on updates and changes. Mm-hmm. So,
and as a character, if you know those changes, that's sort of outside of the scope of the game. You should be learning them within game. But no, when I say meta, I'm talking about more of it from a technology standpoint, where it's descriptive state underlying all similar things. So similar images all have metadata. The size of the image.
So you're coming at that word from a developer standpoint.
From a developer standpoint,
okay,
because I develop creative stuff. So I use the developmental process. So I like to think of the metadata, and it's just similar characteristics between common objects. Is I guess probably the incorrect way that I will say it, but that's what I mean when I say meta.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone's following.
The macro, and where Michael's right is macro is typically the big picture. When I talk about metadata, for me, I mean the big picture. The abstract stuff to me is the big picture stuff. So calling it macro is not necessarily wrong, except it is because it's not the word I'm using.
was about to say, so should you be using the term macro?
You could use the term macro, I think, as well. That's a fair term because I when I talk about metadata, it's always high level abstract stuff. So it would be a fair word to use. It's just not the word I like to use or plan to use.
Fair enough.
So it's wrong. Fair enough.
So
Okay.
you're wrong, is what you're admitting to.
Well, you could say that, but you're wrong by saying that. Now, what are the basic meta questions I have? These are all very similar for all of the things, but I'll just go over them quickly here. It's who are the characters? Like their name. And this could be a working name. I never set with names when I write them down the first time. Like Michael's original first name was Blugga. But that was just a working title for Michael, and then we changed it to Michael as we fleshed him out as a character. He's actually an AI. No one really knows this, but Michael does not really exist. He is an AI construct that I made.
I love how you're taking away the very significant importance in my life of the name that my mother, who gave birth to me, gave me, not me typed up as an AI. I love what you're doing here. Just completely undoing my identity. It's great.
That's what he thinks, folks.
Because we programmed it that way.
That's right.
He's a very insecure program.
Does Michael dream of electronic sheep? Yes, he does.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Whenever I can. And the thing is, though, they're never safe from Jeff. My electric sheep are very, very in danger of Jeff. And
they are. And Michael, unfortunately, has grown the AI ability to control electricity. Oh
my God, I wish.
Now,
all I really want though is X-ray vision when I'm at work. If I had X-ray vision, my job would be infinitely easier.
So you could actually see all the things before you drill into the power line?
Exactly. I could see the ridiculousness that people have done because I could see through the walls. But this is off subject. Let's move on.
This is off subject. Now, the next thing is, what do they do? So for Michael, we could say he is an electrician. That's something he does. That's not necessarily a way you always have to look at it when you're developing a character. That would be an occupational thing that Michael does. But for a scope of a story, like let's say I was putting Michael in a story, he might not be in the story as an electrician. So that might not be how I want to think of him. I could think of him as a coward or a hero. It depends on how he's going in the story. With a fictional, we'll call it Mike. We'll call it Mike here.
Let's go with Mike.
We'll go with Mike here. We don't want to offend Michael himself, but
not offending me. I just want to make sure everyone's following along that you're not actually talking about me. You're talking about a fictional character in a story, a fictional character in a fictional story, which isn't to say the story is fictional, but it's to say that the story is hypothetical.
Hypothetically fictional.
Exactly.
No, this is a very meta episode. Okay.
Now we're getting this is meta, by the way. This is meta, Jeff.
But what they do, and we remember when you're thinking of a scope of your character creating, when you're character creating, you're always going, hey, where are, what do they do in the scope of the story? It could be flee and terror from the invading army, or set up a resistance against the invading army, or collaborate with the invading army. It's not necessarily, I personally like to think about occupational always, but that's because I like to know my characters a little bit more in depth. It would probably inform how they look at problems. One of the good characters that was really good at doing this in a descriptive way was Perrin Ibarra from the Wheel of Time series. He, at the beginning of the story, was a blacksmith's apprentice. And he kept using blacksmith analogies in his internal dialogue to work through problems. So he'd come at it from what Robert Jordan thought a blacksmith would do to solve a problem, which I thought was actually very...
Light it on fire and hit it with a hammer?
Sometimes, yeah. And but it'd be like, if I have a problem, I might need to break it to reforge what I'm working on. Mm-hmm. But his reasoning was from what he understood in life. Mm-hmm. So knowing the actual occupation is good, but that's not necessarily all or exactly what you need when you're doing this, because it's ultimately, remember, it's about the scope in which people are going to interact with the character. And RPG games, yes, you need to know a little bit more about characters because people will interact with them in ways you're not expecting. Where are they? So Michael is in Bermuda. I'm sorry, Mike is in Bermuda. To really keep this separate now, we'll put him in a different location, a much nicer location than Connecticut.
People disappear in the triangle.
That's true, but that's only on the edge of the triangle, I think.
No, right in the middle of it, right?
No, I thought Bermuda was one of the three ends of the triangle.
Right.
Bermuda, Florida, and something else. I don't know what the other part is. So maybe it doesn't know. I don't know. My Bermuda Triangle theory is way behind.
My Bermuda Triangle is more like a trapezoid. It is hypothetically fictional, by the way.
Now, the next part is, when do they do it? And once again, this is in the scope of the story. So let's say Mike is the lead character. He's probably going to come on relatively early in the first act. Not necessarily right away, but usually protagonists come up usually in every act. So usually pretty early in stories, protagonists at least show up. But like if he's a side character though, maybe he only comes up in the third act. Maybe he's the guy who gives the idea. He gives an electrician's metaphor to the protagonist that allows the protagonist to overcome the foe. He'll ground the bad foe, and then the bad foe will be forced to stay at home, and he can't do anything bad. Now, how do they get it done? It's like, what is their approach to getting things done? And why are they doing it? And this is something I think really intrigues both Michael and myself both.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Motivations, definitely.
The motivations of characters. Why and how are to me the most interesting parts of characters. Backstories are neat, but really for me, that only informs what they're doing now and why they're doing it the way they are. And do I think that's the way they should do it? And if not, I look for why they would deviate from what I think. And obviously, I should be wrong every time.
Why should you be wrong every time?
Because they're a different, entity. Really, I don't believe in there's one way to do things. So I like to be pleasantly surprised on the why.
Okay. I don't know if I follow you on that, but we can keep going.
Yeah, so the idea is I usually figure out what people are going to do, but I don't always know why they're doing it. So I like to learn the why. So now that's essentially the meta questions. Those are the questions we go over, or I like to go over when I first go over characters. And then there's some what I like to think of as extended meta. Information I want to know about the character ahead of time. And remember, these things aren't locked in stone until the story goes live. And even then they might change. Is the character dynamic or static? This is something Michael and I talk about. Do they change? I like to know it's up front. And sometimes this could really change. My favorite story of this is Felicity Smoke from the Arrow TV show.
Interesting choice. Why?
She was meant as an Easter egg character. Something to make the super geeks go, ooh, that's a character from the comic book who's appeared like 2 times. But everyone,
really? She wasn't meant to be a mainstay character?
No.
She was meant to be
a one-shot character just to make geeks like me go, oh, it's Felicity Smoke. She was so cool in that one comic I read in 1992 or whatever year. And not that I was so old I could read comics back then. I was really only like 2 years old. But
in 92, you were not.
I was too.
You were born in 65. All right, maybe you're not.
God, that's older than my sister. But essentially, she was meant to be just a one-time character. Someone worked at the company that people go, oh, but they love the character so much that she was around for like 6 seasons or something like that.
Yeah, she was.
It was an important character. And I don't even think she realized the commitment she was signing up for, because she was hired to do literally maybe a reoccurring like once or twice a season kind of character. Like if he needed a little extra hackery he could go to, but she became a core member of the team and obviously the love interest.
Well, I think obviously, how do you know? You know what I mean? You
and I don't think they did.
Yeah.
But they were smart and they reacted to the audience and they took advantage of like, hey, this would be a good a potential love interest. This would be a good character. Now there's, when I was doing research, I saw Judy Blume has a masterclass where she's talking about characters. She has some experience. And I liked she had a thing that she talked about, which to me plays off of dynamic or static, called round or flat characters.
Round or flat characters.
Typically, a dynamic character is round. Essentially, there's a lot of information about them. They're very complex. But some dynamic character or some static characters might be really complex, which makes them stuck in their ways. So you might have a really rich, complicated history about a character who will not change because they're a static character. And you'll most likely have a round character if it's a character who is going to be like a lead character in a story, one of the main couple characters in a story. And then you might have flat characters. Guard number 3, who the main characters walk past, and he says halt, and he asks them who they are before they enter the town. He will probably be a flat character that has no depth to him. So beyond choosing if a character is dynamic or static, you would choose if a character is round or flat. Essentially, how complex does their story need to be? And then for me, I like to know who's the character connected to. And this is not only characters, but like, say, groups, i.e. factions for video game players. Who's the character connected to in the world around him? And essentially, how are they connected? Is it good or bad? Mike's character would be in good, let's say, with the Electricians Guild, but the plumbers don't like him. So if he gets caught by a plumber, they're going to beat up Mike. So
well, they're going to try those.
They're going to try, but they'll be shocked to learn that it won't be so easy.
shocked.
Okay. But yeah, so that's really it for characters at the meta level. You kind of have the same basic who, what, when, where, how, and why questions I like to ask about everything when I start off. And then I like to have a few things in mind. So when I go back to that character later, I'm like, oh, I don't really need to put a lot more into guard number 3 because he's a flat character. I kind of know that because of the who, what, when, where, why. I know his archetype. If it's a sub-archetype, I'll know that too, because I'll choose those out when I figure out who he is. It's his name and it's who is he. So I'll know like that basic kinds of information about characters, and I might not need to go any deeper for guard number 3, but for Mike, the pesky protagonist of my new serial taking place in the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. Mike versus the Bermuda Triangle will stop the ancient aliens of Atlantis.
I like it already.
It sounds good, doesn't it? When I know this information, I can stop for a while, and it gives me enough that when I go back to it and I want to really flesh out the Mike character, I can do that. Because I kind of know, okay, oh, that's right, he was meant to be this or that. And, I might even have notes of if there's a reason why I need him to be that way. Like, I need guard number 3 to be a jerk. So Mike starts down a new path when he gets to the city of Kingston, which is not in Bermuda. I don't think there's a city called Kingston in Bermuda.
I think there is. There's definitely one in Jamaica, though.
There's definitely one in Jamaica. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But Mike gets around. But he stays in tropical or subtropical climates. So now to bring this in for a landing, the world building task for today, this is very important. You need to build 3 characters, one called Moiraine, one called Lucifer, and one called Baralis.
All right, now who are these characters? What is this?
The characters you're making up with those names.
So you're just asking the audience to take these characters, use these names, and create a character. You don't have to use these in your stories or books or anything, guys. Just create Moiraine, Lucifer, and Baralis. Baralis. Are these coming from something? Or you just like these names?
They're all coming from something, yes. So
okay,
Moiraine,
a specific one?
No, the 3 different...
3 different things, okay.
So Moiraine Damadrid, I'm specifically referring to a very important character from the Wheel of Time. And Lucifer, I'm thinking of Lucifer Morningstar, obviously from the Vertigo Constantine universe. I don't know what you call it, the Vertigo universe. I don't know. And then Baralis is actually, he's the super evil guy behind the evilness in Baker's Boy. I believe that was the thing.
In behind what?
He was behind all of the evilness that was going on in the Baker's Boy.
The Baker's Boy, right? You've spoken of The Baker's Boy before. I still haven't read that.
Yes, it's a very good trilogy.
Jeff has walked away from the microphone while we're trying to close the show down. I'm going to use this moment to... Oh, hey, Jeff, welcome back.
Sorry, I had my cat was attacking my door.
I was going to say really nice things about you that I just don't always like to say to your face so that you get too big of an ego. But I was going to tell the audience how wonderful you are.
You will say wondrous things about me.
That's absolutely what I was going to do while you were away from the mic. But you came back.
Say just what I deserved to be told.
Yes, that's exactly.
And now for the real world test this week, I want you to go in and I want you to share some of your characters, just the high level stuff in the undercroft if you have no one to talk to, or you want to anyway. That's facebook.com/groups/undercroft.
See, I still feel like
family or friend.
I still feel a lot of these, you keep using that real world task as a pseudo world building task. And I want them to be like, go out and ride a bike, go do some gardening, go hang out with family. With something good for us, Mike. Why just listed 3?
But no, it's a task, not task. You have to choose one.
Well, then they should have a conversation with a family member you haven't talked to in a little bit who probably misses you.
Yeah. And talk to them about your characters.
And sure. Okay. We can combine them. That works. Hey, guess what? This is what I've been working on. Moiraine, Lucifer, and Baralis.
Let me tell you about Lucifer. Let me testify to you about Lucifer. Don't take this the wrong way. It's fictional.
Fictional. It's hypothetically fictional. All right, guys. Catch you on the next one.
See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.